And then I'm going to admit the rest of our guests. There's another 15 in the waiting room right now.
Back.
Jenner, I don't think we have a quorum. It's just Ron, Nora, and I. So if it's just the three of us, then recalc is not a quorum.
Okay, and I do not think that there is one for COA either.
Don't see one yet either. And I know several people couldn't come, so.
Okay, and Mark is here.
Who is Nancy's iPhone?
It's Nancy Tawadros, Madeline.
Oh, hi, Nancy.
Hey.
Yeah, no, I don't see it anywhere near a quorum from Council on Aging yet. I don't know that we will.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm Jenna Fiorenti. I'm the Community Services Director. Hello to everyone out there on Zoom. Looks like we have a total of 35 participants tonight, which is really great. And we appreciate you all for your time and input tonight in advance. I'm going to hand it over to someone on the Recalc Committee, John Sasso, and he's going to give an introduction on how we've gotten here, a quick synopsis, and then we're going to hand it over to our consultant from BH&A, Rachel Young. So, John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jenna. And I also want to thank everybody for taking the time this evening and joining us. And we're all looking forward to hear your feedback. So just in way of, oh, I'm sorry, hold on a second. So Mark just joined us, so we actually have a quorum on recalc. So I think I need to call us to order. I apologize. So Mark, four is a quorum for us, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Need to actually do a roll call.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. I'm sorry. So I know some folks that aren't here, but awesome. So John O'Neill, not present. John Parsons, not present. Michael Coltman, not present. Nora Bucko,
Present.
Ron Assini,
Present.
Mark Doxler,
Present.
and John Sasso, present. So I'm gonna call recalc to order. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna keep going. I apologize. So in 2022, 2023, recalc was formed by the select board, gave options for improving the existing senior center and also looking at the options for an all ages community center. That effort lasted for about a year and ended with I think many of you folks may have participated in some of the surveys and may have seen some of the reports and information that was generated. In the end, a final report was issued, and we recommended that the efforts on, maybe not necessarily on recalc, but the efforts continue to flush out what would be an option for improvement in the town. So the select board extended recalc's charter, which really focused on working on a feasibility study, among a few other things. And in December of this past year, the BH&A group was engaged by the town to perform a feasibility study. So Rachel's going to share a bit about the kind of the programmatics of that in a few minutes. But effectively, the feasibility study is intended to look at some potential alternative sites and approaches to meeting the needs for the community of both from a senior perspective and the impact of an all ages community center. And they are going to present tonight. Rachel's going to present tonight some of the options that have been worked on thus far. And we really want to be quiet and listen to everybody else tonight and their feedback on that. So with that, I'm gonna end looks like Mark needs to call the select board to order as well, and then Rachel can start. So go ahead, Mark. Thank you. And thank you again, everybody. We really do appreciate your attention tonight.
Thanks, John. Thanks, folks. So let me, I think we do have a quorum of select board. We are posted. So let me call the select board to order, and I need to do a roll call as well. Karen Herrick,
Yes.
Carlo Atti. I saw you. I think
Yes.
I saw you, Carlo. Did I? Yep. Hey, hello. Chris, are you here? Chris Haley, are you on? Chris is not, and Mark Doxer. I'm here, so we're at quorum. Thanks, folks.
All right, I think we're going to turn this over to you, Rachel. Take it away. Thank you.
Wonderful. So my name is Rachel Young. I'm with Bargman Hendry and Archetype, or BHSA. We're an architecture firm located in Boston that specializes in community centers and senior centers. I've been with BHSA for over 10 years now, primarily working on community centers and senior centers. And I think I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I really enjoy this type of work. And so it's a pleasure for me to be with everyone here tonight virtually. Just to confirm, can everyone hear me okay and see my screen okay? Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to go present some conceptual design options. These are floor plans that show the sizes of rooms, the locations of rooms, what rooms are connected to each other, what rooms might be on the first floor versus the second floor. These plans don't have furniture or windows. That will happen in the next phase of design, what we call schematic design, or towards the end of conceptual design. These concepts are meant to kind of show you what we can put on each site, and I'll go through which sites those are. And what we're really looking for tonight is to get feedback on what you think is most successful, what you think is working, isn't working, and then any additional questions you have. I want to stress that this is an iterative process, that this is not the last time these plans will be presented. They'll be refined. There was some great feedback we got from the first meeting last week, and we're already working on incorporating that into the designs. But the concept plans I'm going to show you tonight are the same that I showed at that last meeting, just so that there's parity, so that everyone isn't getting confused about who saw what. Just to go over the project schedule for the feasibility study briefly, it's basically broken up into 3 phases. The first is programming, kind of trying to understand what activities and what types of rooms you want in the center. The second is what we're in the heart of, feasibility, which is starting to look again at the different sites and what they can accommodate. You know, can they meet that program? Do they lack certain required programmatical elements? And then the last would be schematic design, where we're picking one site. We say this is our preferred concept, and we're really developing it to that next level, where we're showing a more refined plan, what the exterior would look like, elevations, what type of materials, is it 2 stories or 1 story, and that furniture I was talking about before, to really give you a fully fleshed out concept. Each one of those phases comes with a cost estimate. Cost estimating is going to be key to this feasibility study, because of course, if something is outside of the budget, it's not going to be something that we're probably going to look at further. And those cost estimates come at the end of each one of these phases. So I just wanted to step back a second and kind of talk about what came out of the previous work that you all had done. You have done a great amount of work, research, surveys, outreach, to really understand what type of center you want. And I wanted to kind of ground this evening's conversation looking at a few characteristics of that center. What are you asking me to design? So some of those key aspects, the programmatic needs, if you will, of the center would be spaces that support socialization. So an example might be a senior lounge, a diversity of activities. So a program room that's able to accommodate, say, makerspace type activities with the necessary infrastructure, but maybe also flexible spaces that could accommodate all manner of activities. Physical activity, so you can see the pickleball paddle that I've included here. Isn't limited to that, but you know, it promotes that type of health, not just mental health, but physical health. Meal programming, so the proposed center is able to accommodate robust, large meal gatherings with a commercial kitchen that can support those activities. Outdoor activity, administrative services, so addressing the needs of the staff, but then also making sure that the spaces that the staff needs to provide social services are adequate. And then lastly, accessibility. And so again, I think it would be helpful to look at each one of these asks, if you will, when we're reviewing the conceptual plans. So the 3 sites that we're looking at, Pleasant Street, where the existing center is, Oakland Road, just across from the high school, and Simon's Way, out by the rink. And then you can see how close each one of those centers is to the center of town, to Town Hall, just to give you an idea of where they're sited in the town. I know you all know these sites, but I think it's important to keep that in the back of our minds. I'm going to start this evening by looking at Simon's Way, because that's what we did last in the previous charrette, and I think we maybe ran out of time. So I want to make sure that this one gets the attention it deserves. So this is a conceptual site plan of Simon's Way. I realize that it's a little pale. I hope that you can still make it out. The white line, and I can draw. This is actual Simon's Way that goes around and takes you back to the fields. This is Range Road, technically a private way that takes you back to the artillery range. This is the ice rink. And then we're proposing siting the center across the street from the ice rink here with a parking lot here. That parking lot has about 90 spaces, which is what we would recommend for a center of this size with a gymnasium. And then just lastly, I want to note on this plan, this red dashed line, that indicates the no build zone, if you will, for the wetlands that are on this site. This site is a much larger site of about 15 acres that goes much further page down, if you will. And that is primarily wetlands. So one of the things that we can take advantage of in this particular site is we might propose outdoor paths and walkways on accessible boardwalks that would take you in and out of those wetlands. This site could also accommodate additional fields here. They're not shown on the site plan, but I just want to make sure that that's understood. One of the site plan for Oakland Way shows pickleball courts. We could also provide pickleball courts at this. So this is the first floor for the Simon's Way concept. In this concept, we have a gymnasium. It's 7,500 square feet. That's a good size. It's a regulation high school size gymnasium court. It accommodates 3 pickleball courts, 1, 2, 3, and it has enough space on the side for bleachers. So you could be used for youth activities where you might have a large audience. In this concept, we're providing 2 entrances. We're providing an entrance dedicated to the gym, and we're providing an entrance dedicated to the senior center or COA. So you could imagine that on day-to-day activities, you're entering this way. You're coming into a large hallway and lobby. You have a generous office suite. Then you have an arts and crafts room on the first floor, a game room on the first floor, a multi-purpose room of 2,400 square feet, a commercial kitchen of 900 square feet, and then a lounge right here off the lobby. You can get to the gym through the senior center. So you just go down this hallway and there are doors and you can get to the gym. But in after hours, an after hour situation like a weekend when the COA might not be open, you can have this entrance so that patrons can get into the gym and not have to go anywhere near the other services or spaces in the senior center. And then I'll just point out that these small rooms that have the R on them, those are individual stall restrooms. So like single stall gender neutral restrooms. We find that those are in terms of accessibility, what it means is you have more larger companion restrooms, and they we would provide at least 1 to 2 companion restrooms in any concept we did, but then you can see in this concept, we have multiple ones. So I think worth noting. This concept has a stair and an elevator in the center, and then a second stair and an elevator for the gym. So there's a little redundancy there. Gonna go up to the second floor if there aren't any questions. And Jenna, if you could help me just see whose hands are raised. So on the second floor, the gym has a walking track. That's a space, again, that's accessible from the senior dedicated space via this hallway. You have a fitness room. That fitness room overlooks the gym. You have a gross motor room, so a dance studio. And then you have 2 program rooms, a large program room and a medium program room. Lastly, you have an office suite. This would be to accommodate additional staff that's not in the COA currently. So the Veterans Department, for example, the Recreation Department. And then in this concept, the multipurpose room is a large double height space. So on the second floor, there's nothing over top of it. You could imagine maybe putting windows along this wall, and you could look down below and see what's going on in that multipurpose room. The multipurpose room is facing out towards the wetlands, so towards nature. You can imagine that would be a really lovely view of trees and nature beyond. So this is the Simon's Way concept. I think I'd like to open it up to questions about this concept, or comments, to be fair.
Sure. And if anyone wants to write in the comment section, you're more than welcome to do that, or you can raise your hand. I don't see any hand raises right now.
Karen has her hand up.
Oh, okay.
I apologize. I can't, thank you. I can't figure out how to put it in the chat. I'm just going to ask a general question about when in this process would the infrastructure be planning be incorporated. As you're looking at each of these sites, you're going to want to consider different energy sources and for heating and cooling. And so it's just a general question, when does that part enter this process? Thanks.
Yeah, so the next step after looking at these concepts is to formulate key site criteria as a community. And we had a little pre-conversation about this, and one of them would be, to your point, which sites lend themselves to renewable resources. Coming up with that criteria as a community, we can then use that to evaluate the sites unbiased. And then that will help us understand, okay, I'm just making this up right now, but Pleasant Street can accommodate solar. Simon's Way can, therefore Simon's Way gets a few extra points in the rubric and might become the preferred site. But it's really looking at multiple criteria.
Okay, I don't see any other hand raises at this time.
We do have a few questions in the chat, I think.
Oh. Okay, so we have a question. Is there a second entrance exit planned in for each side should the senior center or gym be closed off?
So if the senior center is closed off, you have a dedicated entrance to the gym here. This gets you, let me go back to the first floor.
Okay,
So-
and how large would the walking track be laps to a mile?
So it is approximately a quarter mile. So 4 laps to a mile. And you can see, well, perhaps you can't quite make it out. This is a wide track to accommodate more than one people. So you can have, enough space that multiple people can be doing laps and passing each other.
During the COA meeting, the site was flagged as potentially having to be sealed due to toxic waste, ?
Yes. So that is something we are looking at currently to understand the constraints of this site. I don't think it rules this site out right now, but it would be something that most likely would contribute to costs. And I want to stress that each one of these sites is unique and has their own unique costs. So that, of course, will be part of that rubric, but that doesn't necessarily rule this site out at this phase.
And the next question is, has there been coordination with SWEC regarding this space, which is the Simon's Way committee that's exploring this particular site?
So we are citing the center away from where SWEC is proposing SWEC. So that facility is proposed to go behind the rink in the parking lot right now that services the fields. One reason we chose to cite this here is so that we would not have any conflict with those two proposed uses for this entire site. You could envision that as these two sites or two concepts become more credible and advanced in their design, that there would be more coordination, especially concerning parking, for example. Right now, we're showing 90 parking spaces that could make sure that this site is self-sufficient. But I think ideally, we would reduce the number of parking spaces and take advantage of the lots parking, I'm sorry, the rinks parking and the field parking for surge events.
Great.
So
I don't.
let me just, there's additional due diligence we would do for any of these sites once we've determined there's the preferred site. And I think the coordination with SWEC would be something that we would do if we said Simon's Way is the preferred site.
Okay, one just came in. Is there any danger associated with the rifle range?
So this site does not show where the rifle range is, which is much, much further page right. So I don't anticipate it's similar to the rink that we have now. I don't think anyone has any concerns with using the rink and its proximity to the range.
There is a comment about, is there a concern with how far the Simon's Way site is from the downtown area?
So that will be one of the criteria I'm sure we will use in evaluating this site. And that is definitely, just starting to flesh out pros and cons. That is a con of the site.
Carlo has his hand raised.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment the Simon's Way Exploratory Committee has not made any recommendations to the select board. And I'm a member of the select board and I'm on the Simon's Way Exploratory Committee. And we have not presented our findings or refined our recommendations yet. I'm going to be doing that in the next couple of meetings. So this site is still going to be considered for recreation as we go forward. The area behind the rink is not controlled by the town. We own the land, but the ice rink has the lease. So I just want to make that clear to everybody that no recommendations have been made for any particular space yet. So just because you're putting a building there doesn't mean we're not going to recommend something goes there as well. Thanks.
Any other questions on this concept? Marilyn, you're very quiet. You sure? Okay, I will go on.
Trying to listen tonight, Rachel.
Fine by me.
So far, everything sounds lovely.
Okay, great.
All right, yeah, no more questions or hand raises at this time.
Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Pleasant Street. In the charrette that we had last week, I showed 3 concepts for Pleasant Street. I think one we ruled out kind of off the bat because logistically it was, I don't want to say infeasible, but it would be challenging. And that was where we had a multi-purpose room on the second floor. When you have a multi-purpose room on the second floor, you have a kitchen on the second floor, and then servicing that kitchen, again, very challenging. Tonight, I'm going to show one concept for Pleasant Street, the one that proposes the largest addition, if you will. So this is the site plan for Pleasant Street. You can see Pleasant Street, Parker Street, the existing center. And what we're proposing is a 2-story parking garage with 2 entrances, an entrance off of Parker Street for the lower level and an entrance off of Pleasant Street for the upper level. Then on top of that parking garage, we would have additional programming. In this case, it would be a gymnasium. Then there would be an additional addition for other program spaces for the center. And then I'll just point out that this dashed line in this particular plan, that's your property line. So it shows you how close we're getting to the property line in this instance. This is a concept that has not been vetted by the Historic Commission yet. So that would be the next step if this is something that is favorable to the community. So this has 3 floors, and I'll just show you, this is an axon that kind of helps you understand the concept. So you have a ramp off of Parker Street that gets you down to a lower level of parking. You have an entrance off of Pleasant Street, which you can't see for the second level of parking. And then everything that is in white is an addition. And this is a conceptual perspective, if you will, that shows you what that might mean to build on top of a parking garage. So you can see this is Pleasant Street. There would be an entrance into the parking garage here. And then above it would be an addition. And then you might have a nice glass, what I'll call hyphen, a smaller piece of building that kind of gently connects the existing center to this new addition. So this is the lowest level. The lowest level, as I said before, you enter off of Parking Street into a garage, which has about 24 parking spaces. At this level, and you would come through the parking garage into a lobby. At this level, you have offices, a fitness room, and then a stair and an elevator that take you up to the main level at the elevation of Pleasant Street. I want to note in this concept, the existing basement space in the center is dedicated to mechanical and storage space. And that is largely because the existing ceiling height in the basement is quite low. Right now, it just meets code, and it would be questionable whether we could actually fit it with actual programming given the ceiling height. Projects like this still need a lot of mechanical and storage, so will still be a useful space. Moving up to the main level, the first floor, that's at the elevation of Pleasant Street. You have an entrance, a lobby lounge, some office suites. Maybe this is where Chris's office is and one other support person and the receptionist. And on this level, this is where you have the multi-purpose room and the kitchen that supports it. So you could envision if the multi-purpose room is used after hours, you come into the lobby. The lobby is the place where you hang out, maybe waiting for a class to start or end. It's where you could have large banquet activities because of the commercial kitchen, but you could in essence lock down the rest of the center so that you're disabling the ability to go down below or up above. And on this level, again, you have one level of parking accessed off of Pleasant Street, and that provides about 27 parking spaces. So total, we have about 50 parking spaces for this site. On the second floor is where the remaining program spaces are. So you have a sizable lounge for 1,000 square feet. You have additional office suite space. This could be used again for veterans, for example, or maybe this is where the nurse professional goes. Or nurse, forgive me, nurse's office. And then you have an arts and crafts room at this level, a large program room, your dance studio, a smaller program room, and then a game room and a program room over here. The lounge is located directly across the gym, so it can serve as a, again, place where you can wait for a class to get over or start. And then in this instance, you have a smaller gym than the concept I showed you in Simon's Way, largely because the width of the gym is dictated by the width of the parking lot or the parking garage below. So the parking garage is 65 feet wide. So in this case, we can only provide a 65-foot wide gym. In this concept, we're also not showing a walking track. That might be possible, but I think, again, that's something that would need to be reviewed with historic because that's going to make the height of the gym just that much taller. Any questions on this concept?
There was a comment right before we left the Simon's Way site that the access for the majority of seniors by different modalities of transportation is critical. So that was just a comment that someone made. I wanted to point that out. And then Michael Coltman just commented on the length of the walking track. I think that's what he's referring to. And Chris also commented and just wanted Carlo to clarify that the same exact site is being considered by the Simons Way Exploratory Committee, which I think he did say that, that this site was also being considered for other things by Simons Way. Chris just commented there are also a dozen parking spots across from the Pleasant Street Center owned by the Housing Authority. And Joanne would like to comment. Joanne's iPad. You can come off mute when you're ready, Joanne.
Is there space available for multi-purpose office space for volunteers who do the tax program and the Shine programs? I don't see very much in the way of extra office space.
Yes, so this site is limited in that respect. I think that there might, as we get into refining the site, we might find that we cannot accommodate all of the program at this particular site. And it might mean that we get creative. And for example, where you had asked for a conference room and a small program room, we provide you a conference room / small program room that can do double duty, if that makes sense. There are some creative ways that we can overcome that. I think would still satisfy the ultimate intent of the program that we've laid out. And I will say that the other limitation of this site, we address parking. It has fewer parking spots than Simons Way. And in addition, there's very limited outdoor space. And so we had talked at the last charrette about taking advantage of the flat roof that might be over the gym or the other parts of this addition to provide outdoor terraces, gardens, that kind of thing.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, there's a bunch of questions coming in, so I'm trying to just keep scrolling up to make sure I have the most up-to-date question here. 1 second. How much parking is currently on site and how much is generally used?
So my understanding is there are about 35 parking spaces on site currently. We haven't done a parking analysis. We're actually doing a count on a daily basis, but anecdotally, it seems that you're pretty much at capacity. And again, recommendations that our traffic consultants would make is that a community center or senior center without a gym, we'd recommend a minimum of 70 parking spaces. A center with a gym, we'd recommend another 20, so a total of 90.
Great. Marcia has her hand raised. Marcia Fallon.
Yes. Once your car is inside the level on the parking garage, would you be able to drive your car to the other level for a space, or do you need to go back out and onto the streets to come around?
Yeah, you've got it. That's another con, if you will, of this site is that you think of a traditional garage where you do have the ability to go up and down with an internal ramp. We don't have the space to accommodate that. So we have 2 entrances and exits. So you could envision a situation where you're approaching on Pleasant Street, you go into that parking level, see that there's no space available, and then have to go down to the lower parking level to look for parking there. We talked about the idea of having volunteers or some way to otherwise advertise at the entrance to the garage how full it was to help alleviate that. But it is a con, if you will, of the concept.
Thank you. Okay.
Is there a difference in size of both gyms, and how many can fit in the Pleasant Street dance / gross motor room for a class?
A good question. So the gross motor room, the program calls for 1,000 square feet and then 100 square feet of storage. That usually can accommodate a class of about 20 to 25, depending on the particular activity. And then the gymnasiums, the gym at Simons Way, because we're not constrained with the structure of the parking garage, is 75 feet wide. This gym at Pleasant Street is 65 feet wide. They still are regulation high school gyms, and they still have 3 pickleball courts. The gym at Pleasant Street doesn't have the extra space for bleachers.
Someone made a comment, if this is a senior center, shouldn't those needs be prioritized for on-site?
Which needs?
Would that person like to specify in the comments, and then we'll just move on to the next comment, which is reconstruction of the current Pleasant Street Center would likely require a 2-year period during which another location would be required to house senior center activities.
Yep.
Has any thought been given to what difficulties that would pose for providing support to Reading seniors?
So if the feasibility study would incorporate those transitional costs, if you will, when presenting all the pros and cons for this particular site. So we would, for example, we'd look to see what the going rate for our office rental space, if you will, is in Reading, and figure out how large a temporary center might have to be to figure out what those costs are, moving costs as well. But you're right that is an additional cost for this particular site. And this is kind of what I was getting at, is every site is going to have something unique that's going to be more expensive versus one of the other sites. They all have unique cost constraints.
Okay, great. That person that had commented about the on-site services, I think it was in that conversation where we were talking about Shine and the senior support services. So
Yeah.
I think that was just an
Understood.
add to that. And I think
Yep.
Mark has his hand raised.
Yeah, so again, I think with this site, it's going to require us to think a little creatively. And I'm not proposing that we cut out any of those key social services, but it might be that instead of everyone having their own private office, we have a few people that share an open office, because that helps us be more efficient with space. Those are the conversations that we might have to have with this particular site.
I was just going to add, folks, that we have heard from the folks that own the Market Basket Plaza that although they're not really interested in a senior center being there, they would be interested in talking to us about temporary space. Just to answer the question about have we thought at all about it, that obviously could be one of the options, which is what we were able to do for the library, if you remember, when we did that construction. Thanks.
Then I see Michael has his hand up. Should we move on, or do we have any additional questions?
Is it Michael Coltman?
Yep.
Mike, did you want to talk, or? All right, I guess we could just move along. Thank you.
Sure. We'll have time at the end too. Okay, so that's the Pleasant Street concept. And something that wasn't mentioned this evening, but was in the previous chat, which I think is worth noting, is that in this concept, a question came up, well, where is the dedicated senior space here? So I think at Simon's Way, you could understand that the core senior spaces were on the first floor. You had a second way to get to the gym that didn't interfere with the activities of the seniors. And in this concept, you lose that a little. I think that we could work harder to sharpen our pencils and see if we can't get that back. But in the concept we're showing now, I think it just highlights that this is a lot of program to fit on this site. And I think there are going to be some compromises to that, just to forewarn with this particular site. Okay, so then let's move on to the last site. Last site is Oakland Road. And these I just want to stress are in no particular order. So this is a site plan of Oakland Road. In this instance, this is north, just to orient. This is the high school parking lot down here. And in this concept, so I think I'll assume that we're all familiar with the site. There's a lot of hilly terrain. There's a hill here. There's another hill here. And then in essence, there's a valley or a plateau in the middle. In addition, you have residences on either side of the property. So over here you have neighbors, and over here you have neighbors. So I think one of the unique constraints of this site is creating a center that is a good neighbor. So in this concept, we're locating the center, and it also has a gymnasium. It's similar in program to Simon's Way, but we're locating that building kind of in the center of the site. We're not locating it close to this abutter, and we're not locating it close to this abutter. We're trying to really locate it in the center so that we're not kind of, again, being a distraction or unneighborly. Then lastly, because we're locating this in the center of the site, it means that we have two parking lots rather, a parking lot at a lower level and a parking lot at an upper level. And that is the, I think, driving concept or driving, how do I say, idea of the site is that you can take advantage of the hills to create two different levels and thereby creating a dedicated or a more distinct senior center space. And so I'll show you a section that's cutting through the site. So in this section, you can see you've got the lower parking lot and then the senior center space, which is on the lower level. And then on the upper level are the rest of the community rooms, the rest of the program rooms, the staff for the additional, the rec department, the veterans, and they're associated with an upper parking lot. And so I'll show you those site plans. So this is the first floor. Your lower parking lot would be here. You enter through a shared entry and a shared lobby. And this lobby services the gym. And it also gets you entry into a private lounge area for the senior center. So these doors here are basically doors that in essence would lock down the senior center to create an entirely private dedicated senior space. And that space contains the main offices for the senior center, the game room, the multi-purpose room, and the associated kitchen. This concept does not show the arts and crafts room, which is another room that seniors had asked to be specifically in their dedicated space. So I've been working behind the scenes at getting you that. And I just want to stress that we're not showing it here again for parity, so everyone's looking at the same concepts. Off of this shared lobby, you'll have an elevator and stair, and that's going to get you to the upper level. And on that upper level, you're going to have the rest of the program rooms, and you're going to be able to access the walking track. So on this upper level, this is where the arts and crafts room is currently, the gross motor room, a large program, a small program, a medium program, and a fitness room. And then there are offices located here and a second entry that you would get to off of the parking lot at the second level. Any questions on this concept?
There is a message that came in. When you're done, would you please compare square footage between all three sites in the original Pleasant Street Center?
So right now, all the concepts we're showing are the same square footage, which is around 26,000 square feet. That was the target program area we had for a community center with a gymnasium. We were targeting 16,000 square feet if we were going to do a community center without a gym. And all these concepts show you that. Again, I think so you can compare apples to apples.
Okay, let me see if anyone has their hand raised here. I don't see anyone. I think a new message just came in. Hold on a sec here. Okay, that's just a direct message to me. So is the lower level above ground? The entrance, I can see. What about other walls?
Yeah. So let me go back to this section. I'm not really good. I tried to practice as eraser tool. I apologize. But basically, I'll use a different color. The senior center is this, basically what I'm coloring in orange down here. And you get to it from the lower parking lot. So it has glass and faces out onto this lower level. The back rooms, and let me go to the plan, this might be helpful. So you have all of these rooms have glass and daylight. This wall back here is in effect a large retaining wall. So that's why we've located, for example, the kitchen and the restrooms and mechanical spaces back there, because there is no windows or views afforded in that direction. More questions? I figure out this This,
So there was
darn
a
erasure tool.
question. I saw pickleball courts in the plan outside. Is there some protection for the neighbors related to the noise of the courts?
Yep, great question. In the previous charrette, that was also raised as a comment. And so we said we would move the pickleball courts to the lower lot. Again, same concept as the building, moving everything to kind of the center of the site. So we would move the pickleball courts, instead of having them up here, well, you can see they're kind of close to this neighbor, we would move them down here, take up some of the space we have for parking. And I think that will help minimize noise.
Great. And someone wanted to specify all the gyms will allow for about 3 pickleball courts.
That's correct. Yep, 3 pickleball courts, a regulation high school basketball court, volleyball courts as well. And they all have a divider curtain, so you space. You know, you could use half the space for one activity, half the space for another activity.
Great. Looks like there are a couple hand raises, but I just want to get to the last message here. Can you clarify how big the current center is?
So the numbers I've been giving this evening, that 26,000 square feet, that's a gross square footage number. So that's basically the entire footprint of the building times 2, if it's just a general extrusion. So it's the first floor square footage plus the second floor square footage. It includes the thickness of the wall. It includes the hallways. It includes mechanical and support spaces. It's the, you know, basically if we were to, this number is most useful when we're talking about costs, because this is what we use. We would give you like a square footage cost and multiply that times the gross number. So the proposed center we're saying is around 26,000 square feet when it includes a gym. The existing Pleasant Street Center, again, gross square footage number is around 6,000 square feet. So what we're proposing adds 20,000 square feet gross.
Great. The next hand I see is Tara Gregory.
Hi, I was just curious, is there an accessibility consultant on the project?
So that was asked for in the interview. We had, there was a list of required consultants, if you will, that we had to submit as part of our proposal. We have not engaged that accessibility consultant yet, and that would probably be something that we do in schematic design. So again, when we've selected a site and we start to really refine that concept, that's when they would be most valuable.
Understood. Thank you.
But I appreciate you bringing this up. It's always good to, you know, again, those key values that we had in the beginning of the slide presentation, I think are really helpful to return to when we're talking about each one of these sites. Accessibility was on that list, and I think it's really important to keep it in mind.
Another comment came in, and I do see another hand raise. One of the comments, all plans are for a combined senior center as well as space for community activities. Is that correct?
Yep. So what we're proposing right now is a community center with dedicated senior space. And so what that means is there are going to be rooms that are dedicated and used almost exclusively by the seniors. And we had gone through during the programming part of this feasibility study and kind of identified those spaces. So they were the multi-purpose room, the arts and crafts room, the senior lounge, and the game room, and then the support spaces that go with them, like the commercial kitchen. Those spaces were identified as almost exclusively used by seniors. And what I mean by that is, let's say 90% of the time they're senior spaces. The arts and crafts room would be set up for activities. They wouldn't be broken down, if you will, so that you might walk into the arts and crafts room and it has an activity that the seniors have been working on for multiple days. But on special occasions or for special events, those spaces might be shared. So you could see, for example, the multi-purpose room, that another community group might want to use that space, just like the Pleasant Street Center is used now. Recreation Department uses the great room for activities. The multi-purpose room you could see being used in that respect. So those are the dedicated senior spaces. Then the rest of the spaces in the center, like the gym and the additional program rooms, are community spaces that are shared between seniors and the rest of the community. And how they are shared is something that I think we still need to work out. Different centers do it in different ways. Some centers do it by time of day. So seniors have the space from 9 to 2, and afterwards it becomes space that's open to the general public. You could see many ways to to create a shared vision for that space. Or those spaces, I should say.
And I know Marianne's been waiting a bit. Marianne Downing?
Hi, can you hear me? Did I unmute correctly?
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah, okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
I posted in the chat, but I think unfortunately I responded to another person. Watched your presentation last week with the Council on Aging and Recalc, and I never got a chance to zoom in and ask my question, which is, I think I heard you say something about surge parking, that you would try to use the high school parking.
I think that, yeah, sorry, did I cut you off? Go ahead.
No.
So I think there are opportunities to right size the parking at all three of these sites. I think, for example, at Oakland Road, you have the high school parking across the street. With our parking and traffic consultants, they are going to do an analysis, and they're hypothetically going to suggest, well, the multi-purpose room is the space that you're designing the most amount of spaces for. In other words, a big banquet is going to be when you need the most amount of parking. If you're saying
Well,
that
that's
you're
my
only
question.
going to have, yeah, so I'm just, give me a second to go through this exercise.
Yeah, sure.
I talk a lot, I apologize. So you have the multi-purpose room. You're saying that that's what you need the most amount of parking for, but you only ever use that multi-purpose room on the weekends. Say the high school lot is empty on the weekends. That would be a perfect opportunity to look at shared parking arrangements, and then you can reduce the amount of parking on the site. Those are hypotheticals that I'm saying right now, because again, our professional needs to actually look at these scenarios. But you have parking at the high school on Oakland Road, you have parking at the ice rink on Simon's Way, and those are both opportunities to be explored further.
Okay, so part of my notes to you is you really need to check with the Reading Public Schools, who are in charge of the property, because even on the weekends, marching band practices in those lots. There's sports teams that are practicing. There's events. I mean, needless to say, during school day, those lots are completely full. As a parent of high school students, they're full, and high school students park along Oakland Road. And I would also be concerned with senior citizens who maybe aren't as quick as high school students trying to cross Oakland Road. So I don't know whether you're envisioning functions happening on weekends that aren't associated with the seniors, or because I see like the current Pleasant Street Center has, these lunch and learns, these different food events that I think draw big crowds, and those would be during the school day. And so you just experience some challenges if you try to assume you could use any part of Oakland Road or the lot. That was just my comment.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And I want to stress, we're not assuming any, or I'm trying not to make any assumptions at this point. It would be great if we could take advantage of already existing parking. It'd be great if we didn't have to build as much parking on any of these sites because of the environmental concerns, but also the costs related. Another option we have that we can explore as well is to propose future parking on any one of these sites. So again, Oakland Road, we could say that we're not going to build all 90 parking spaces. We're going to build 70 parking spaces and reserve a part of the parking lot as future parking area that isn't paved, doesn't have lights, but has the infrastructure to go back and put that at a future date if you find that you actually need it. It's another way to be a good environmental steward.
Okay, and just my last observation is, and this is more maybe something Jenna would already know all about, is if you're planning, if that ends up being the site and you're planning programming, there are just certain times of the day when you probably would have very stressed out seniors trying to get to a program while you have high school drop off and big stuff that and trying to get time. So that was just my other thought. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yep, definitely. It's a great point, Marianne. There's a couple more comments here in the chat. So I'm just going to get to those. Would a gym accommodate things like wheelchair level sporting events for seniors and youth?
Yeah, so most basketball courts, and forgive me, I'm talking about basketball, but they have adjustable goals so that you could raise or lower them for both youth basketball, but in this instance also for wheelchair leagues.
On the Oakland Road site, how close would the building be to the cul-de-sac of Chestnut Road?
So it is about 150 feet from the edge of the cul-de-sac.
Similar to Marianne, have you considered the impact on the area, considering there are schools nearby with traffic issues?
Yep.
So that's just someone else that commented on that.
Yep.
How would requests be prioritized given the serious space constraints in the town? Many seniors are still working. 9 to 2 isn't realistic.
Yes, and forgive me, that's just a hypothetical. There are some centers I've worked with before, and that's the hours they arrange. And in fact, those centers, I realize that, to your point, those are limited hours that don't work for working seniors. But the idea would be to create an administrative shared agreement between different departments for how those shared spaces are used.
Can you compare the sizes of the 3 multi-purpose rooms?
So in Oakland Road and Simons Way, they're both about 2,500 square feet. And then at Pleasant Street, this concept I showed was 2,400 square feet. The Pleasant Street concept, it's not a nice, neat rectangle, which I think is limits its functionality. Let me go to that plan for a second. Bear with me 1 second. So you can see here that it's not a true rectangle. It notches in here, and it notches in here. So you could see if you, for example, were doing a presentation and you had a screen here, you're gonna have some people that can't see in the back. That's what I'm getting about it, that this geometry limits the functionality of the space. Look at that further. But it's less about the square footage. I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's less about the square footage for this space, and it's more about the shape. And forgive me, I said it was 2,400 square feet. It's 2,600 square.
Great. Joanne has her hand raised.
I was disconnected for a short period of time and wondered what the options are for outside recreation at the Oakland site.
So at Oakland Road, we're showing, I believe, 4 pickleball courts. Let me confirm that. We're showing 6 pickleball courts. But in addition, we can provide a walking trail. And part of that walking trail would be accessible, and part of it, because of the terrain, would not be. You could do a smaller circuit that's fully accessible and a larger circuit that might have terrain associated with it. There's space for a patio, and you could probably fit other amenities like bocce courts don't take a ton of space. So you could see this being fit out with more amenities. Likewise, Simons Way. I think it's at Pleasant Street that we're really tight on outdoor space, even for a bocce court.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
One other comment. In the past, there was discussion of a traffic study being done on the whole Birch Meadow area, since greater pedestrian safety and traffic calming are needed. Is that still in the plans?
So as part of this project, once we have a preferred site, we would engage our traffic and parking consultant, and they would do, for example, if Oakland Road was chosen, they would get crash data from the police department for Oakland Road to see how dangerous it is. They would possibly do a parking count of how full the Oakland Road High School parking lot is on various times of the week. They might look at they would look at sight lines as you're entering or exiting the site. If it's on a curve, they would make recommendations about how far the intersection at the parking lot needs to be from the curve to be safe. Those are the level of recommendations they would give for us.
Okay, another new message just came in. I would be concerned about the ledge in the area and water runoff problems during and after storms.
Yep. I think ledge is a concern with this site. And water runoff will be something that we'll look at with the civil engineer, who will help us make sure that we're siting the building correctly. These are all good questions, and I don't mean to be punting them. We'll take them back and we'll follow up.
Great. I don't see Any other hand raised? I think Joanne just didn't take her hand down from the last time. And I don't see any other questions at this time.
Do we want to do a straw poll similar to last time? We could just do it with people raising their hands if you don't mind counting, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best.
Yeah. So in the last charrette, we just did it very informal, straw poll, just seeing which site was preferred at this point in the design. So if people wouldn't mind either physically raising their hand or raising their avatar hand, I'll just list off the sites and we can go one by one. So we'll go in order. So Simon's Way. How many people at this point would prefer Simon's Way?
Okay, Chris, can you help me too?
Yes, I am counting for you. I'm taking a look.
I got 6.
I'm up to 9, 10, 11.
All right, let me go back.
I think I'm up to 11. Eleven, 12.
Yep, I got 12 as well. All right.
Want to lower your hands and then we'll do the next site? Okay. Is everyone's hands down?
We have 2
Donna
hands still up.
Donna and Tom, are you guys up for the next site, I assume?
Okay, so next site is Pleasant Street. Want to raise your hand for Pleasant Street.
I'm getting 11.
Okay.
I'm counting 2.
Okay, want to lower hands and we'll do the last site? Okay, so then the last site is Oakland Road.
I also want to make note that as an employee and a town resident, I am not voting in this and have no say.
I got 4 for Oakland Road, and we're not. Yeah, I'm not voting either because I'm also a town employee.
Okay. Well, this is helpful information.
I
Oh, I got another one. Hold on.
think there's 5, and then there's some
5.
folks that did not vote.
Okay, I got 5 for Oakland. Did you get that? Oh, yep. Yep, 5. Okay.
So in terms of next steps, we have 2 more in-person meetings scheduled. One is at the COA during a weekday afternoon, and then the other is on a Saturday morning. Both again are in person. Jenna, forgive me, are we having a Zoom? Are they hybrid or strictly in person?
So March 2nd, we're just waiting for confirmation that RCTV can actually come and film. But it won't be offered in Zoom if it's at the Pleasant Street Center, which is what we're hoping to do. So yeah, if anyone on the call would like to come to the second session and hasn't seen the senior center, we would love for you to come and see the Pleasant Street Center on March 2nd.
So we have 2 more in-person meetings to review these concepts. We'll take all the criticisms, comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, and this is where it really gets reiterative. Because then we'll show something, we'll show a concept that picks up those comments, get more comments, show another concept that picks up those comments until we have 3 options that we're all pretty happy with, that we then can apply site criteria to. Site criteria, including costs, And then that's gonna help us come up with an unbiased, impartial analysis of all 3 sites. That then you, the community, will be able to say, okay, based on this rubric, based on this analysis, this would be our preferred site. And once that selection is made, we would then move into schematic design, which again is when we really refine that and start to do our due diligence, if you will. A lot of the questions that were raised this evening about traffic and parking and hazardous materials, all of those investigations would happen at that stage. The last thing I
Great.
also just one last point
yeah.
concerning programming. Programming doesn't start and end at conceptual design. It's really something that follows us entirely through this process. So there's always opportunities to refine the program. And I just want to clarify that.
Awesome. I just had a couple more comments come in. You know, some people just specified that they didn't want to vote because it would depend on the cost, and
Sure.
that would be part of their vote. Someone else said, I agree, cost is a factor and what the town can afford. We want it to pass the first time it's presented. And then there's someone else who commented that their vote was actually 2, and I believe they voted for Oakland Road. So that would be a total of 6 for Oakland Road tally.
Just as a note, we had just under half the people vote, just to let everyone know, but
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Yep. It's all informal at this point.
And then someone else commented, didn't we already determine anything on, determine building anything on Oakland Road would not be logical due to multiple different factors? I don't know about that entirely. I'd have to look into that.
If they could clarify what those, like maybe they're thinking of the ledge, for example. We have good data, I will say, on the ledge at this site. And coincidentally, it's the civil engineer that we're working with now for the traffic and parking analysis. They had done the previous investigation of the site in 2014. So that really helps us out in terms of knowing this particular site.
Okay, and then someone says, please discuss possible comparative costs. I'm not sure if we know that yet. And
yeah, I would be hesitant to give costs at this point because they're like feathers in the wind. Once they go out, you can't get them back.
And then someone just had another comment about Pleasant Street. It's the only one easily walkable from west side of town.
Yep.
Is there any plans for providing transportation to non-drivers?
So conceivably, when we're doing this rubric and we're looking at, you know, access to transportation, walkability, we might say, for example, Simon, again, just give me an example because it helps me flesh through ideas. Simon's Way, it's out there. Would we want to provide additional transit opportunities like the shuttle that the center has now, adding additional shuttles to make that site more accessible? Those shuttles come at a cost. The cost of the shuttles, the cost of the staff. We would use that figure as part of the total cost for that project. So you could see how these different things are, these different constraints of each site translate into an additional cost that is then incorporated into the roof.
Great. Someone said they lost connection, and could you please repeat which site got the most votes? So Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I got 12, 11, and 6 in that order.
That is correct. 12 for Simon, 11 for Pleasant Street, and 6 for Oakland Road.
Can you say that again?
12 for Simon's Way,
Yep.
11 for Pleasant Street, and 6 for Oakland Road.
Okay, that's what I got. Great. Okay. So I hope that clarifies that question. I think that maybe, would you have to blast at the Oakland Road location is another question that just came in.
Most likely not. The ledge that they identified, and I say most likely not because there are always unforeseen conditions on any project. But right now we understand the ledge to be on the hills that are on either side of the site. So over on to the north and over to the south. And we're trying our best to locate the site away from those 2 hills in the lower flatter portion in the middle.
Great. So other comment about the neighbors. And people local to that have been enduring the water tower nightmare, so anything impacting folks in and around the high school should be considered. And I'm going to also put my email, Rachel, in the chat. So
Yep.
if anyone has additional questions, they can reach out to me and I can just kick them to you if that's okay.
That is more than fine. Yeah, I'm happy to entertain any and all questions. I'm always available.
If anyone would like to see the the current Pleasant Street Center, you're more than welcome to come by at some point. Happy to have you look around and see what we currently have as well.
And then before we close the meeting too, we just have to make sure that everyone adjourns out of their meetings.
Thanks, Jenna. So Mark Doxer here. Can I ask one of the select board members to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. So we'll do a roll call. Karen,
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mark. Yes, thank you. Select board is adjourned.
Can I ask someone to make a motion to adjourn for recalc?
So moved.
Okay, want to see if we can adjourn recalc. Mark Doxler,
Yes.
Michael Coltman. I thought I heard him on here at one point. Okay. Nora Bucko,
Yes.
John Parsons. I don't think he's there. Ron Assini,
Yes.
John O'Neill, John Sasso, yes. So recalc is adjourned.
Council on Aging didn't hit a quorum, so we're all set.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for attending. That was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Very
you,
much.
everyone.
Very much
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Rachel.
Yep,
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for being here.
No problem. See you
Bye-bye.
soon, I'm sure. Bye-bye.